Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Citrin Cooperman Future Reimagined. My name is Stanley Goldis. I'm a tax partner at Citrin Cooperman. I have the honor of introducing and interviewing Mark Nelson, a yoga studio owner, director, and teacher par excellence. Mark, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much. I look forward to talking with everyone.
And since, Mark, you're being interviewed in your yoga studio, perhaps would be appropriate for the audience to have a sense of what a first-class yoga studio looks like.
All right. And this will be
the studio.
Yeah, this will be kind of a sneak preview of what the physical space looks like for part of our business model and what the actual online space looks like. So I hope I don't make everyone dizzy here. When the pandemic started, we realized we had to reinvent, and the big word being pivot. We had to set up basically an entire video operation here inside the physical space. And as I pan back there, that's where shortly we're going to be welcoming people back into our physical space. But as it stands right now, we have created an entire new business model right here with this setup.
Fantastic. Looks great. So, Mark, you were not a yoga advocate in your younger days. Never too late to make a change. How and why did you become a yoga studio owner? What happened in your life that drove you to a change in careers?
Well, the yoga aspect for me started gradually. I was initially in education, and that turned into a career in publishing. That turned into a career in graphic design and art direction, which then grew and grew and grew into a corporate career in sales and product development. Through all of that, there were increasing demands, there was a stress level that was building, and over the years, I kept coming back to a simple practice of movement and breath and mindfulness. And as that became more and more part of my life, I realized that that was really what I wanted to be sharing with people. So at one point, I made that transition from a corporate career that was well underway into a new venture where I could actually combine all of those elements into something and make it an offering.
That's interesting. So you talk about mindfulness and obviously the benefit of the yoga. That reminds me of a Wall Street Journal article, I believe it was May 25th. And I'll quote from that article: yoga significantly reduces resting heart rate, which yields a longer life expectancy. Related to that, there was an article by the Kaiser Family Foundation, did a poll, and in January to June 2019, about 10% of the adults interviewed exhibited some forms of stress, anxiety, depression. They did a similar study during COVID and went from 10% to 40% with negative impact on their mental health, worsening chronic conditions, stress over the coronavirus. Tell us why yoga, in whatever form, should become an integral part of your life. Oh, by the way, and don't forget to tell everyone how you taught me to breathe properly.
And I will turn the spotlight back on to Stanley. I know that he's an avid cyclist, and over the years, he and I, not only in our capacity as business partners, being with his accounting expertise helping me along in the business, I've also helped him along with breathing exercises, etc. As we moved into the surprise event of the pandemic, which no one saw coming, it took everyone by surprise. People had to really navigate that. And the key word becoming pivot, that they had to figure out a new way of doing things. And for a lot of people, that was really, really stressful. When the pandemic hit, we initially thought this was going to be a 3-week shutdown. We were all going to open up again. Everything was going to be back to normal. Clearly, that was not the case. So initially, as we went into that new phase, we did things as we could. We offered free online classes through Instagram or Facebook, etc. But then we realized that this was actually going to be our business model for an unforeseeable future. So we did everything we needed to recalibrate the business, to put new elements in place and continue our offering. While we were doing that, we were doing simply the best we could. But what we heard back again and again and again from people was that access to yoga was a lifeline through all of the stress, all of the uncertainty. They knew that they could log in at any time from anywhere and connect with other people, with their practice, with themselves. And that became a really, really powerful lesson from this whole experience, that this simple practice was becoming something really, really important for a lot of people.
So you just confirmed the Wall Street Journal article. Okay.
Very much. Yes, we saw it in real life.
You saw it in real life. You've seen the dramatic consequences of the pandemic, especially in the fitness industry that has suffered greatly. And you've had to pivot and reimagine your business model several times over the past year.
Yep.
All of those challenges, what do you think the biggest one has been, both initially and now? And how and why have you pivoted so many times? And how did each pivot change your business model?
Good question. As we launched into this was brand new territory. And if we were to if we were to focus on creating an online only environment, we were entering into a very competitive field where there were players who were well established for decades of building a global online identity. So that was not where we wanted to gear our next efforts. But what we realized is that by streamlining our business model, which we had to do, it was forced upon us, like with many people. By streamlining our business model, we were actually able to turn the tables on eventually the profitability. We started seeing patterns that we had gotten into when everything was working just fine, and we could carry those patterns through. But when things got challenging, we realized we really needed to step back and say, how are we doing things? As we moved into deeper and deeper into the pandemic, we had established a really strong protocol, as you've seen, for how we would deal with the online classes. They would be available not just while you're watching them, they would be available for 48 hours afterwards. We have staff that logs on and monitors all of the activities. If anyone is having technical difficulties, someone behind the scenes is taking care of that. So we figured out a new way of doing things. But now, as we begin to reopen, we're realizing that that process is continuing. We've got our online classes, but then we're also opening with a very responsible approach to indoor classes as more and more people get vaccinated. And we've also ramped up our outdoor classes. So basically, we are coming out of this pandemic with a brand new business model. And it's a hybrid model that allows not only us to thrive, but gives all of our students access to yoga wherever, whenever they need it. So it's a total win-win. It was hard getting here. There's no getting around that, but we're coming out of it with a brand new business model.
And you're going to constantly be changing as you see the situation evolve.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So here, yoga studios come and go. And I just see it in the neighborhood. It's here this year, a year or two later, it's not there. But you've been a constant now for 10 years. What makes you so unique in your approach that you have outlasted many yoga studios, and of course the pandemic.
Yeah. We currently have 2 locations now, in addition to those other aspects of our business model. We've got a location here in Narberth, Pennsylvania, right outside of Philadelphia. And we've got another location down in the Washington Square, Society Hill neighborhood of Philadelphia. Yoga is a competitive industry to be in. There is constant evolution within the fitness industry, and there are a lot of individuals cropping up with new studios here and there. They come and go, like you said. But what has really helped us through this is, if you recall, I said I got into yoga because I was coming from a corporate background. To be able to apply those principles to running a holistic business is a really good balance. To be able to look at the numbers with you, with all of the professionals and those relationships that I've surrounded myself with, I'm able to, and I shouldn't even say we as a business are able to navigate all of those changes and adapt and keep up with what people are asking for in a very, how would I say, a very profitable way, that we can put everything together, keep moving through the changes that come.
Fantastic. There are so many levels of yoga ability, as one can see from some of your poses. But I use myself as an example of what I've gained as one person. How do you manage to accommodate the various levels of the, as you call it, the yoga garden student family, as you affectionately refer to them? People come to classes, they're either above the level, at the level, or below the level. How do you solve this problem?
Well, first of all, it's getting to know each of those students, and we really do. Our teachers really take the extra effort to meet each person who comes in, learn their name, get an idea of where they're coming from. If that person is coming into a class that is more challenging than they should be in, we'll discuss that with the person. They're welcome to be in that class, but we just want them to be responsible about it, and we'll watch that, and we'll be there with them if they need some guidance. If that person is coming into a class that they could do much more than will be presented there, then we can have that conversation with them too. Part of our model, and it sounds really straightforward, but it's actually not an easy model to cultivate, is we offer different types of yoga for different demographics. That is not always the case. If you have yoga at the gym, that's going to be for the gym crowd. If you have a hot yoga studio, that's going to be for an athletic hot yoga crowd. Other studios will offer just gentle yoga, etc. We make a point in our schedule, in our lineup, of having something for everyone. And it is actually a serious consideration in our business model to be able to offer all of those different styles.
So that really means that the instructor has to be tuned in. I mean, I've gone on vacation and gone to yoga classes, and it seemed like the instructor was more interested in performing the yoga activity than in paying attention to what the students were trying to do. I felt lost. Am I doing the right thing? I did not get any feedback at all.
Right.
And your instructors are not like that.
Right. And as a business, whether we're talking about yoga or any type of business, because I know everyone who's logging on in the audience, they're coming from very different backgrounds. You have to focus on your customer. You have to look at what they're coming for, what they're hoping to accomplish. There's a term that comes from my old educational background of outcome-based education. Think of that in your business model of what is your client hoping for? What are they wishing to accomplish? And if you can stay connected to that instead of, in my case, the teacher at the front of the room doing their own yoga, that's not getting anyone in that direction. So long term, we want the client to be the hero of that story so we can give them what they're looking for.
Okay, fantastic. Going forward, how do you envision the reimagined yoga future? What type of model do you see as best practice?
Okay. I think there are going to be several different levels of fitness yoga environment. Clearly, online is going to be here to stay. We have effectively taught all of our clients that they can practice at home. Okay, so that we have to really be part of that or lose out on that part of the equation. There is also, as we've seen in a lot of different businesses, a trend towards bigger conglomerates of moving towards bigger operations. So one model can be franchised and spread out over multiple locations. We do that in our own way with our 2 locations. But where I believe where our niche is going forward is to continue with that finger on the pulse, that connection with our clients, so we continue to give them what they're looking for. My aspirations for the business are not to achieve huge nationwide franchise level. I'm looking to cater to the needs of these specific clientele and do it with integrity and do it for the long term.
All right, that's fantastic. So change is inevitably constant. Where are you investing your time and energy now and focus in terms of what that change you anticipate will be?
Some of the biggest changes I've seen are in marketing in the early days, because now we're going on 12 years in the business. I opened officially in 2010. At the time, a small business owner could go in and update their own website, increase the visibility through SEO, search engine optimization. It was very quaint at the time. Just handing out flyers on the street corner, that could be your marketing. Now things are more sophisticated, and the pandemic has shown us that individuals can market their own offerings and cut out the middleman of a physical studio or of a larger operation. They can do it independently. Our role or our focus within that is now to really be mindful of how many ways people can see us and really cultivate that, whether that's through the website or effective email marketing or print, which has its place, or especially social media leading to word of mouth. All of that is part of our model. What I have seen, and what is really kind of scaling back to one of your questions earlier, one of the big takeaways from the pandemic has been that the very straightforward equation of overhead to revenue becomes vital here. And that's stating such an obvious point, but in my case, it means streamlining our operations and continuing to increase our membership. That's a very straightforward way for me to look at the business.
All right, so that's the focus. So we're now, month number 14 from the start of the pandemic, or month number 15. What key lesson or lessons have you learned during this crisis?
As things continued, first of all, the uncertainty, not knowing when you're going to be able to reopen. And through that process, one of the things that really came back for me were the relationships that this business has developed over time. Those relationships can be the loyalty of our customers who could have jumped ship immediately. They could have jumped and gone to an inexpensive online platform. They could have. Many of them stuck with us. They wanted these people who represent this business, they wanted us to be here at the end of it. We wanted to continue to offer our services to them to get them through it. So there was a very symbiotic relationship there. But then also the business partnerships. Stanley, you've been vital in giving the feedback and almost the pushback on numbers decisions. You know, how do we navigate all that? The conversations I've had with landlords, with bookkeepers, with legal professionals, these are all behind the scenes players within this, like I said, this holistic business, that those relationships carried us through. It wasn't always easy. We were all kind of finding our way, figuring out how we were going to make it through. But as now we're getting to the light at the end of the tunnel, those relationships have been essential. And, you know, we in the administrative team here have often thought of it as we want to work with nice people. Okay, and that sounds really basic, but you work with people that you want to work with. And when it comes to that moment when you need to really make some tough decisions, they will be there.
Oh, so the key takeaway was maintaining these relationships, even though you did not know when you were going to open, how many classes you were going to have, where those classes were going to be. That was probably much more of an important item that you learned, that you'll continue, that resulted from the pandemic, where you probably would not have necessarily maintained these close relationships had the pandemic not occurred.
Right. Well, I think the deeper lesson is you want to maintain those relationships. You want to cultivate them because you just don't know when you're going to need them. And so be good to people, be fair to people, be a conscientious business owner. So that comes back to you.
Okay. So you already alluded to it. What can Citron Koopman do to help you? I've already heard some of the comments, and hopefully we can continue to help you move forward to reach even a higher level of growth.
Yeah.
Is there any questions from the audience? Have a question, Mark.
Okay.
People who are anti-vaccinators, they're embarrassed about going to a yoga studio. They don't want to be in front of a crowd of people. How are you going to handle those type of individuals who still want some kind of social distancing,
right,
and a one-on-one lesson? Is that something that...
Yeah, we can do that several different ways. We are, as a membership-based business where we're going to be in fairly close proximity doing a lot of physical activity, we are requiring vaccination, proof of vaccination. We're doing that in multiple ways, so it doesn't have to be putting anyone on the spot as they walk in. We're going to give them many, many opportunities to do that. If a person chooses not to do that, we've got outdoor classes, which people are 20 feet apart in fresh air. There's no risk there. So that's one opportunity. Obviously, the online will continue, and people have asked, because not just anti-vaxxers, but people who have health concerns who really should not be in a public environment, no matter what their vaccination status is. They have the opportunity of practicing offsite, or just as you were saying, we could potentially do some sort of a one-on-one, and we could do that in a really socially distanced way. So those are opportunities. It's another part of our business model.
Fantastic. So I think we've pretty much covered everything. I want to thank everyone for joining us. and hopefully looking forward to bumping into some of the audience at a yoga studio, indoors or outdoors. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure, Mark.